I want to thank everybody for joining me today. Today, I want to talk about accessing assets and irrevocable trust. I think one of the hesitations that many clients and advisors have with irrevocable trust is how do they access the money inside there? And today, I want to talk about how we can set up the trust. And we need to do that extra planning ahead to make sure that all of this fits with what our client is trying to accomplish. As we've talked before, there's a lot of reasons to use an irrevocable trust. It could be, planning for estate taxes or liquidity, controlling our legacy, and or asset protection. And most of the times I find that there's a combination of all of this. But if you look at when we're planning with irrevocable trust, it really becomes a balancing act. And the better we understand our clients and their needs and their goals and what we're trying to accomplish, we're going to have a better result for our client. But with this balancing act, really, if you think about setting up the trust, it's going to come down to what assets are we going to transfer into the trust. And what really goes along with that is, not only what assets that we have, but how much of those assets do we put into the trust? Because our clients always come back to, they want to know that they have enough to take care of themselves. And I've worked with a lot of clients in different, net worths, and it always comes back to this question. Well, if we're making irrevocable transfers, do we have enough to live on? Do we have enough to continue to enjoy the lifestyle that we want? So as you start looking at this planning, it really is going to come back to creating that balance for our clients to make sure they have what they need and what they're comfortable with. Well, the problem when you look at a lot of these trusts, and when these trusts are set up, the word that scares everybody is irrevocable. And they should be scared of that in a lot of cases because if they haven't done the planning to get it right before the trust is drafted, before those assets are transferred in, the client may become upset because they didn't think through all the what ifs. But the problem I see with a lot of these trusts is when it comes to accessing those assets, most trusts don't allow anybody to touch those assets inside the trust until the grantor's dead. For example, mom and dad set up a trust and they have their kids as the beneficiary of this irrevocable trust, but it says this is to pay estate taxes or liabilities upon the death of mom and dad. Whatever it is, nothing gets paid out of here until mom and dad have passed on, until the second death. Well, think about it. There could be a lot of unforeseen issues that arise. What if the kids have health issues? What if mom and dad have long-term care issues? What if those assets, that mom and dad have held personally, they lose access to income or the assets have been devalued? Look back to 2008. In 2008, real estate went down, the stock market went down. There was a run on cash and people's lives were upset. Well, have we thought through all of that so that we know that we can access the money when, if, and how we need to when those events occur? So the question that I'd like to throw out, do you know you can create access to the irrevocable trust during the grantor's life? So think about this, during mom and dad's life, can the kids get access to that money? So as we look at that irrevocable trust, number one, it's out of the estate. That's what we wanted. We wanted to get it out of the taxable estate. So check that box. But do we have access? Do we have a spigot attached to that trust that will allow lifetime access to the assets and income inside that trust? So we can give direction to the trustee or give discretion to the trustee to be able to make those distributions. But it takes time to think about the what ifs. What ifs that can happen in the future, and is there enough assets and income to pay for these events? So you start thinking about this access for a spouse or for kids or grandkids. this becomes the opportunity to take the planning to the next level to make sure that we've got access when and how we need to for the right beneficiaries of this trust. So let's look at this. Let's take an irrevocable trust, and we're going to add lifetime spousal access. And this is a great way to, when we're planning for spouses, to make sure, one, we've got enough income, we've got enough assets to cover those what if issues. So let's take this trust. Let's have an irrevocable trust set up for the wife in this case. So in this case, we're going to have husband be the grantor of the trust. As the grantor, our husband in this case is going to decide what the terms of the trust are. He's going to decide who's going to be the trustee of this trust. He's going to decide who's going to be the beneficiary of this trust. And when he's ready, he's going to transfer assets into this trust. There again, go back and think about that balancing act, because in this case, husband's going to irrevocably transfer assets out of his name into a trust set up for his wife. During his lifetime, if we set this up as a grantor trust, any income tax generated out of that trust will be taxed back to husband in this case. If husband and wife are filing a joint return, okay, it doesn't matter. But if we had changed this to a trust for the kids, now dad is paying the income tax bill for the kids. So the grantor trust is a great provision. Not something that we need to dive into too deep today, but we're going to look at this. Now we've got this trust set up for wife in this case. The assets are now out of the taxable estate for husband. And if we've done it right, they're out of the estate for wife. So we've now eliminated this from the spouse's taxable estate at husband and wife's death. Now we look at the lifetime beneficiary. In this case, let's make the wife the lifetime beneficiary. We can make her the trustee of the trust if we want to, or we can have an outside trustee, a third party, be the trustee. But in this case, we can give the wife access to the principal and income of the trust in her full discretion if she's the trustee and also the lifetime beneficiary. So now you go back to that balancing act. Well, we've now had that, we've kept assets in potentially mom and dad's taxable estate, but we've set up this separate trust outside of the estate, set up for, in this case, the wife, but we've given her access to the income and principal of that trust if she were to ever need it. So think about those what ifs. What if she becomes unhealthy, needs long-term care? What if she just wants to take a trip around the world? Any of those things, we can give her either discretion or direction to take care of her at that standard of living or whatever the grantor in this case set up in the trust. We can also add as a lifetime beneficiary if we wanted. We could add the kids or grandkids and give the same kind of distribution ability during the grantor's life. And that's the key here. When, in this case, when mom passes away, we can move that down now to the kids or to the grandkids. There again, we can keep it in trust. It's outside of the estate, but now we've still got access. Wife may pass away and it moves down to the kids or grandkids level. Husband or grantor in this case may still be alive. So now we may be 2-3 generations deep, and we still have access to the income and principal of that trust if it's needed. There again, the what ifs, and we're just creating more access. So when you go back and think about that balancing act, what assets do we move over? How much do we move over? Well, if we can have access to those during the grantor's life, we're inside an irrevocable trust. We've got asset protection for the trust. We've got estate tax protection of the trust. All of this starts coming together to where that balancing act becomes less and less of a burden, less and less of an issue in the planning if we think through it and if we add the right provisions to the trust. I appreciate everybody getting on. If you have questions, feel free to reach out and we'll talk again next time. Thank you.